Good evening. I'm Dr.McGee, president of Quincy University, and tonight we are continuing our virtual homecoming for Quincy University. I'm standing in my own kitchen, the president's house at 1810 Chestnut Street, just on the north side of QU's main campus. And I'm specifically standing in my kitchen. Now, if you're an alumnus of QU or QC, Quincy College, you might be thinking, wait a second, the president's house kitchen doesn't look like that. And the answer to that is several years ago, Quincy University decided that the president's house needed a bigger kitchen. And so we have room to do a little more entertaining here. Ordinarily, for our alumni, we would expect to be hosting events this homecoming week right here in the kitchen, in the backyard of the house, and around campus. We can't do that this year. So instead, there have been a series of events, as many of you know, all over campus, including a tour of the house a couple of days ago. And so some of you I'm seeing again. But tonight we're doing something completely new. Instead of entertaining in the QU President's House kitchen, we are doing our own version of cooking and wine tasting right here in the house. Now, I'm a passable cook, and I've gotten a little better at this during COVID-19. If you're like me, you've been learning how to cook some new things. You've been trying some new things out, whether it's pulling recipes off the internet, or if you're like me, you're pulling out some old cooking manuals or cookbooks that you haven't used much over the years. And I've made some things I never dreamed of making, and I'm sort of proud of adding to my skills. But my skills are absolutely nothing compared to that of the man to my left, your right, Chef Chase, who works with us at Chartwell's at Quincy University. And Chef Chase is an amazing talent who makes wonderful food for our students and sometimes for our faculty and staff. It's a real treat for me every time I get to eat his work. And tonight, we're going to do something that has a bit of a seafood theme, and you know, we're very grateful to have Chef Chase here. So, Chef, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Got quite a few wonderful things here to show and to eat today, and then even better wine to pair it with. So I will get you guys started and line you out on what we'll be doing. Some of you may know, some may not. We will be doing a goat cheese souffle, amaretto pineapple over pound cake for dessert, and a pan-seared balsamic mahi-mahi with portobello couscous. So
that all sounds terrific, Chase. And I should add that I'm a kid from Illinois, but long before I came back to Illinois, I spent 15 years in Charleston, South Carolina. So hearing that mahi-mahi brings me right back to the beaches of Charleston. So we're so glad to have you here. Please have at it.
All right, thank you. So first thing we're going to do here, we're going to kind of get a little bit ahead of the game, get some stuff ready for dessert. So I have fresh pineapples here, whether you have it cut it yourself or bought it store-bought. We're just going to add some amaretto to the pineapples, and we're going to let that soak while we do most of the other stuff here. So I'm going to do that and set it behind. And then we're going to go ahead and work on the goat cheese so we can get that in the oven and have something to eat while we do everything else. So,
I'm in favor of eating because all this is just making me hungry looking at it, Chase.
All righty, so we'll start with sour cream, Greek yogurt. There are substitutes for less fat, things like that. So we're going to go ahead and start with sour cream. And then with our log of goat cheese.
That's a lot of goat cheese.
Yes, sir. Never enough goat cheese.
Agreed. And we should point out that Chef Chase has been doing a lot of cooking demonstrations over the years for our students. So, yeah, if you know someone who's been at College of Charleston in recent years, they might know Chef Chase. So check that out with them. So please, Chef, I'll shut up now. Please tell us what you're up to.
Thank you. So I'm getting this mixed together good, just kind of breaking up the goat cheese the best we can into the sour cream. Then we're going to add our choice of herbs. I went with basil and some chives.
So I'm taking a guess you didn't just buy this dried out of the supermarket.
No, sir. I did do a little bit of chopping before I got here. So I used all fresh herbs, of course. We're going to keep everything as fresh as we can. Fresh lemon here as well. So we'll add 1 squeeze of the lemon to that. And then we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil.
I'm taking a wild guess. You've done this so much, you don't have to measure like I do.
No, sir, I do not.
All right. Because I have my measure cups out right now.
All righty. Then salt and pepper. Not going to go too heavy on the salt. Don't need much. Pepper is up to you. Always go as heavy as you feel necessary. Going to go a touch heavier on this, just being that it's a simple as it is. So once again, just gonna mix that up. All right, so I'm gonna get a nice dish here. Don't want a dish that's gonna really make the souffle too deep. We want it to be kind of shallow, good for dipping, something that's not gonna take too long in the oven.
So you're gonna pop that dish straight in the oven. It's oven safe. And it's
Yes,
good to
sir.
go. You're not gonna break anything in my oven now,
I hope not.
are you? Okay.
But we're only cooking at 375 here, so it should take us about 10 to 12 minutes or so. You'll see some bubbling. That's usually when I tell it's done. So I'll get that in there. We'll get started on the next.
Outstanding. You saw as that camera panned, there's a little wine coming soon, and we'll have a whole different discussion about that. But please, chef, continue.
All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and just get some of the fish ready. So I'm gonna take the pieces of fish I have, put a light layer of balsamic vinegar on them. We're gonna let that sit for a few minutes.
All right, I'm getting hungrier by the second. I know some of you actually bought the food ingredients for this dinner, and you might be making it right along with us, or might have gotten a head start, or you might be taking notes for later. But whatever you're doing, know that I am already happy for you because I know how wonderful this is going to be. And Chef has had decades of food safety preparation, so no surprise, he puts on those gloves real fast.
Alrighty, so gonna have our fish dried. Best to pat dry if you're using fresh or frozen fish. So you want to get it as dry as you can.
And like so pat drying just means take a napkin.
Yeah, you can take a napkin, parchment paper. If you'd let it set out in your fridge, just open an hour or so before cooking, that works as well.
Okay.
Just trying to get as naturally as fresh as we can.
All right.
So I'm gonna just put a little bit of that balsamic on here and just rub it in. Doesn't take very much.
Don't forget to speak up, Chef. We got to be picked up by those microphones.
So just not too much balsamic, just enough to get it covered. If you put too much on, or if you put it too early, it can lead to a bit bitter of a fish, and it likes to burn. So I don't go too heavy. I've learned the hard way on that.
No pressure, don't screw up. Got it.
Right. So as that's going, I'm gonna go ahead and get the portobello couscous started. And we'll go ahead and start by warming up our pan for that and getting a nice layer of olive oil in the bottom.
And we should point out, Chef really was very happy to use my kitchen, but he brought his own pans.
I did.
Everybody loves their own cooking utensils best.
I must say they look a lot better in here than they do at my house. Oh, it's just too beautiful not to have a pan to match it.
Understood.
What I've seen, Chef, you have some pans as well.
I love my very old pans. I'm a Revereware guy. You can snicker at that if you're online because you know that technology's decades old. But you like what you like.
Just gonna let this oil get a little bit hotter. Mushrooms will cool it down quite a bit, so we want it to be nice and sizzly when they get in there.
That's a lot of mushrooms.
I don't know if I'll use all of them yet.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of, I wanted to have more than less.
All right.
So if you don't want to use the whole mushroom, that's just fine, but at least have a couple pieces in there.
So if you're on the other end thinking, what's Brian going to do? The answer apparently is not very much, but I've told Chef he can give me anything to do that no one could possibly screw up. But I am definitely the sous chef of sous chefs for this. So please go ahead.
All right, so I think our oil is hot enough here. We're gonna go ahead and drop in about half of these mushrooms. I really just want to get a nice brown on them, get some tenderness out of it, and then we're gonna cut it off and just let it sit until we get the fish finished.
So is there a way it looks when it's cooked just right?
It'll lose sort of that porky texture. So you want to get into not slimy because no one likes slimy, but the corkiness to be gone and to have some tender meatiness to the mushroom.
So it's how it looks more than anything.
Yeah, more. Okay. A lot goes by looks and smell.
Yeah, because I have a terrible time figuring out when mushrooms are done.
Okay, yeah, and that's a lot of preference thing.
Okay.
I didn't start to like mushrooms until maybe 6 years ago, and they've been on my family's menus for 20 years plus. So I've really been working on liking them more, and I'm a crispy mushroom person.
All right, so not surprisingly, we're gonna do it your way, Chef.
Alrighty.
All right, that tossing looks like a scary advanced skill to me.
Can't do too much tossing. I do have some rubber spatulas just so you can get a nice even cook on everything. Definitely want to make sure we get everything cooked nice. The reason I chose the deep pan is because the couscous will be going in here. So as soon as we reheat that, we will add the water and the couscous, and it'll kind of just come together.
So you don't want it to spill over the top, so it's.
Yeah, for example, if we use this, it'd be just a lot more work with the couscous, more surface area, not really end up with that final product which we want.
All right.
The pan choice was intended.
All right, so does that take, so just a couple minutes on
Yeah,
that?
just a couple minutes on these, and like I said, I'm just gonna kill it and let it sit in the back. We're just kind of getting the mushrooms where we want them.
Now, I know there are a couple of different kinds of mushrooms. This is just a basic white mushroom.
This is a portobello.
That's portobello.
Yes.
I think that's what we asked 12 people to buy.
Yes, sir.
Could you substitute other mushrooms?
Oh, you could definitely substitute cremini, porcini mushrooms. Any of the wild mushrooms would be good, if not better.
Okay.
You could also garnish with truffle oil if you have some laying around.
Ah, pretty fancy stuff.
Yeah, I've never caught without a couple bottles and some whole truffle.
This is Chef Chase's secret. Always have a couple bottles of truffle oil
Yes.
handy. Okay.
Black, white, both.
All right. Well, good trick of the trade.
All right, so these seem to be nice and tender. Gonna go ahead and put these in back and just let these sit for a few minutes. And wouldn't be a bad time to check on the cheese dip and talk about what wine would go good with that.
All right. So let me introduce Lane Schottenkirk. Lane works with Verb Imports, and she is a trained sommelier. She is not a QU alum. She is an alum of Vanderbilt, but I'm giving her a free pass for that because my late wife is a Vanderbilt alum. So go Commodores, go Hawks. Let's talk about wine.
Yes, absolutely. So awesome talk with the truffles because we have a wine that goes lovely with truffles. Actually, both do. But the white wine, if you bought the wine, or if you guys are interested in trying the wines later, we have the Langhe Favorita. So this wine actually comes from Piedmont, which is in the northwest corner of Italy. That is kind of the homeland of a lot of truffles. So they are the region that's kind of known for integrating a bunch of truffles, white truffles and black truffles into their dish.
So this is sort of the Milan area of
So a little bit further west, we're right on that coast, bordering France.
Okay, so not the French border. Well, yeah. Okay, great. Tell us what else.
Yeah. So kind of a idea when you do pairings is you think about where the wine is from and then regionality of the food as well. So that's where the truffles, mushrooms, everything comes in perfect. But the reason we picked this white wine, it's very similar to a Sauvignon Blanc as far as styles go. So it's very light, refreshing, crisp, and the acidity of this wine is going to cut nicely through the richness of the sour cream and goat cheese.
And so, and I'm just, I know that if we pair the right wine with the right food, the wine tastes better than it otherwise would, and the food tastes better than it otherwise.
Yes.
So that's what you're talking about with getting the acidity to match and getting getting basically the chemistry of the wine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Food and wine are definitely meant to go together, and when paired correctly or even to your preferences, yes, the idea is that it enhances both items to come together harmoniously on your palate.
So, if you're like me, you're in the wine store, you're sort of looking on your phone, trying to figure out what pairs. What's the fastest and easiest way to do that if I'm sitting there with my phone and I don't have you handy? And I'd much rather have you to tell me. But if I don't have you handy, how would you recommend I do that?
So definitely just Googling on your phone is a great, Google is awesome. It helps tremendously. So what I would do is think of your dish and then ask if you're a white wine, red wine drinker, or even sparkling wine. Then search which white wine would go best with risotto, or which white wine would go best with fish.
So you don't have to just ask the wine, risotto, but I should say whether it's a red or a white or a sparkling,
Yes.
then it'll find the right one for me. Because most people prefer one or the other.
Typically, yes.
Okay.
And there's always that kind of that rule of thumb of white wine, fish, red wine, red meat.
Right.
And that's not very true. It kind of depends on more so the sauce and the other major flavors that are in the dish. I mean, the meat has a good part of it, but if you cover like this mahi-mahi in a balsamic, Chianti actually pulls balsamic and like tomato and basil flavors.
So that can mean that you can go, that rule just doesn't matter very much. We really need to look for a little more information.
Yes.
Okay, so of course, do we have to spend a lot of money to find a wine that will pair with the right food? Because you walk in, you don't know much like me, you just think I should just spend more money if I want a better wine.
Absolutely. So there is kind of a correlation with price and quality, of course.
Mhm.
But I would say anywhere in that $10 to $20 range is perfect for finding just a great everyday. You're going to get something that is very good.
Mhm.
And that's about all you have to spend. You can spend more if you want to, but that's about the price range you're looking at
Okay.
for a good base wine.
And so the wines we're looking at here are not particularly expensive.
No, actually, both of these are about $14 and $15. So right in that range that we're talking
And
about.
I'm still going to be wow.
Yes,
Okay.
hopefully.
All
That's
right.
the idea.
Yeah, all right. Things going well over there, Chuck?
They're going good. Looks like we need just a couple of minutes. It's leaning more toward the 12-minute side.
Okay, well, and that's, every oven's different, and
Yes, sir,
all
it
right.
is.
Well, talk to me a little bit more about, what would we pour our first course, then have the appetizer, then take those glasses away, and then pour the second course?
Absolutely.
And so you shouldn't feel guilty if you don't finish your first glass when you move on to the next course.
Nope, not at all. And so, yeah, the idea was to pair this with the appetizer and this with the fish. But I highly recommend trying both wines if you have them with both dishes and seeing what you prefer and how they change based on the wine.
Now, I noticed we opened these up several minutes ago, and sometimes people say wine's supposed to breathe. Can you talk a little bit about how long you should have it open and what temperatures for the white versus the red?
Yes. So for opening up in advance, that's totally up to you and your personal preferences.
Okay.
For white wines, you typically don't need to open them up too far in advance. They're meant to be fresh, consumed young for the most part. And then red wines, you open up a little bit, and that's just the idea is that the bouquet or the aromas are just going to open up as they're exposed to oxygen.
Okay.
So you're just going to get a little bit more out of the wine if you give it a little time to breathe.
So it actually tastes better.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, is the idea. And so if you opened up a bottle or you decanted it, about a half hour equates to about 1 year of aging.
Really?
So if you had a young wine, you're like, oh, it's going to drink awesome in 5 years. Just leave it out for a couple
By
hours.
wine, you mean one that's just a couple of years old?
Mhm.
Okay. And so I decanted, that's just a way of saying I put it in another container.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then I've made myself a more expensive wine in about an hour.
Yes.
That is amazing. All
Yes.
right. I did not know I could get that much value from $15 for a bottle of wine. So awesome news.
It all comes down to the vineyards and the winemakers. So I think our dish is ready.
Yes, it is.
Talk to us about this, Chase.
The goat cheese souffle is ready. I chose to pair it with non-bread. It's my absolute favorite. It's very tender, soft going bread, but it would go great with crackers, Italian bread, French bread. Anything you want to put with it, anything you like to spread on. I'm sure it's good on much more than what I mentioned, but if you guys would like to give it a try, I think we could.
I will definitely give this a try. It's just like what you're giving our students every night in the Quincy University cafeteria.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one more time, what kind of bread is this that we're
It's
using?
non-bread.
Okay. And what makes it non-bread? Because I think not everybody will have heard that term.
It's kind of a newer thing we're starting to see in our markets. They're normally a bit bigger. These are actually called the non-dippers.
Okay, I'm gonna step back just a little bit, get a few feet here since this is COVID-19.
It's kind of between like a pita and maybe a sourdough, I would say. Something close to that. So it's really.
Oh my
tender.
goodness, that is amazing.
Yes, it's very rich. So tread lightly. But like I said, it's really.
I'm not treading lightly. This is way too good.
You can fill it with basically anything you like. So whatever herbs you have in the garden, whatever olive oils you have, whatever balsamics you may have around the house, all that stuff still pairs wonderfully well with this. And it's a crowd pleaser.
All right, well, if I'm gonna eat that, I probably have to drink some of this amazing wine.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So how do we pour a glass so that we really get the best results?
Okay, so the idea is it's not very complicated.
Okay.
Just want to do a little pour,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you want to be fancy, you twist, and it prevents the dripping.
I've seen people do the twist before, and I did not actually know that was the reason, so I told you didn't know much. All right, this.
So like I said, this is a very similar to a Sauvignon Blanc. It's very refreshing and crisp, very fruity, and you probably can taste that, feel the salvation in your mouth from the acidity, which is what is going to cut through that goat cheese dip.
And that is a wonderful, wonderful compliment. It just tastes so, the word is goofy, but it's complimentary.
It is.
Yeah, I'm going from something sort of a little sweeter and more savory to this with the acidity you described, but it's very fruity and very light, and it contrasts with something that might be oaky,
Yes.
okay, which we might get which we might get in other kinds.
Absolutely, and they have their own set of foods that they go really well with. The other thing that's great about this is it's a palate cleanser. It almost eliminates each bite while you're eating, so that when you move on to your mahi-mahi, you have like a fresh palate going into the next
Okay,
dish.
now Lane, I'd be the worst person in America if I didn't let you, A, drink your own wine, and B, try a little bit of this dip. So I'm gonna let you do that.
Okay,
And I'm gonna eat some more because I'm completely greedy.
But Chase might have more to talk to us about.
Yes, I do. We can go ahead and start working toward the dinner. Our fish has been sitting in the balsamic now for a few minutes. Balsamic, I did want to add, comes in very many different forms. True balsamic vinegar isn't seen as much today as you maybe think you see it. A lot of it is added vinegar, et cetera. Real balsamic takes about 12 years to make, and it's stored in wood. So today, we more commonly see balsamic vinegar of Modena, and that's graded on a 4-leaf scale, 1 being the most bitter, 4 being the thicker, sweeter. So some of that does come into play if you want to fine tune, your salad dressings, your recipes, et cetera. Choose the vinegar that best suits the food that you're cooking or what best suits your likes.
So what you're saying is I shouldn't just go to County Market and buy the first balsamic that I see on the shelf.
No, sir, nor should you buy the most expensive one you find online, because price doesn't always mean it's better.
Okay.
So authenticity is usually told you on the bottle. It'll tell you how many years it's aged. That's how you know you're really getting a good balsamic. Otherwise, there are good ones out there on the 4-leaf scale. My personal favorite is a 3-leaf. I use it for cooking, use it for vinaigrettes as well. And sometimes it's even sweet enough to throw on some dessert or some fruit. So it's the more versatile one, as you could say. Today, I choose a 2-leaf vinegar, and that's because we're doing it with the fish. And we're going to use some of that acidity to sort of start a ceviche on the fish. And that's why we let it sit for a few minutes. Ceviche is the property of cooking with acid. So it's kind of starting the cooking process on the fish. It should ultimately end up being a little more tender that way. So we're going to get our pan on and get our fish started here. And I'd say medium to high heat. We're going to let the pan get hot. You don't want to touch cold fish to a cold pan.
Okay, cool. So no cold fish on cold pan.
No, sir.
Another question. Some of folks watching might have an electric range, not a gas one. Any difference for that?
Electric, you probably want to go just a touch hotter. We want to go and we'll throw the oil in. We want to make the oil get a little lighter in color, and you'll see it starts to dance around the pan a little better. That kind of lets you know, hey, we're ready. You can wave your hand over the top as well, and if you feel good radiation, it's usually good enough to cook.
So dancing means starting to sort of pick up off.
Yeah, the oil,
you.
yeah, it starts to repel from the pan, so to speak, as the hotter it gets.
Repel sounds a lot fancier than spin.
It does. Okay. So it may be a little hotter than most of you are comfortable with if you haven't cooked fish at home before, but it does take that heat, like I said, so you don't get any sticking, and so you get a good cook on your piece.
And good cook means like an even cook throughout the meat?
Yes, and you can cook. So if it's too hot, it can burn the vinegar that's in there, but if it's too cold, it could stick. So we're kind of looking for that sweet spot. I'll show you an easy way to tell in just a second.
Well, you're putting the pressure on this, Chase. Not too hot, not too cold, got to be just right.
All right, so I'm gonna add some oil. We're not gonna do a lot here. Just gonna do enough to run in the pan. We don't want it to be deep. The deeper the oil is, the more it's gonna cook up on the fish and it has potential to fry the edges. So we don't want that. The next way, we can touch the fish and you'll get a little moisture on your hand. You can just flick it in your pan. And if you hear your oil, it's ready to go. So made a little noise there. I think it's ready to go. And give this one last little drain. And just gonna drop it in the pan. Make sure it moves around. And just let it go. If it doesn't move around, it generally means the pan was not hot enough. So at the point where you see it starting to stick, I would even pull it out, get the pan a little hotter, because it'll only get worse from there. So
that is the best sound in the world.
Yes, it is. There's only a few foods that you can actually hear. So sauteing is one of the best parts about that. Stir fry, things like that, you can always hear how the pan's going. If it's really loud, you can tell that, hey, maybe my pan's too hot or I have too much moisture.
Don't forget to speak up, Dave. It's a little noisy in here right now.
Yeah, I get a lot of noise coming from the pan now too, so I guess I'll have to turn it up a little bit. All right, now that's going, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat back on the mushroom. There. And nothing too high, we just wanna see that oil start sizzling again in the mushrooms, and then we'll go ahead and add the water and the couscous. As far as measurement on water and couscous, the general rule of thumb is 1 cup couscous to 1.5 cups water. So it's slightly different than rice, but you can follow the directions on the back of the box or bag as well, and that generally proves to not let you down.
And well, give us plenty of detail on couscous, chef, because that's not a food we have every day here in the Midwest.
No, it is not. Couscous may look like caviar, but it's pasta. It's just another way to eat pasta. We have a lot of things in our diet that come in many forms. So couscous is one of those ones that just come in a sort of odd form, but it allows us to use it places maybe we wouldn't otherwise. So
Okay.
it's generally not soft like your typical pasta, I will say that. So with this now, you can kind of take a peek and see that it's starting to get some dark sides on the bottom. We're gonna go ahead and flip that. Once again, just slide in the pan to make sure that everything's not sticking there.
And if it were sticking, would we turn up the heat? Would we turn down the heat?
If it was sticking, I would turn up the heat.
Okay.
And generally that's gonna kind of break the fish away from the pan via the oil.
Mhm.
Turn it down just a little bit here since we're flipped down.
So all this is physics and chemistry in the end.
In the end, yes. So once you kind of get the feeling for it, or you get, to where you're comfortable, I think you'll start to make a lot more stuff in your own kitchen.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how it was for me. I grew up in a restaurant, so for me, that was my comfort zone. I wasn't afraid to go light a pan on fire. I wasn't gonna burn the place down or anything.
I
but
totally believe that.
I did not tread lightly when I was a youngster. So the mushrooms now got some sizzling going, so we're gonna go ahead and add about a cup and a half of water to that.
Now I've got more measuring cups than you can take a stick at, but once again, Chase, you know exactly what a cup of water looks like.
Now that we got the water in there, we're gonna go ahead and turn that up. We wanna get that water boiling before we add the couscous in there.
And we'll say at this point, you can't smell it, but it is absolutely delicious smelling in here. This kitchen has not smelled this good in a long, long time. I can only pull this off with chocolate cake and cookies. So this is amazing.
So now the other side's been searing, starting to get some color. Gonna let it go another minute or two, and then we're gonna put it in the oven to finish.
And so I know you're working, Chef Chase, but what about the oven finishes?
The best part about the oven finish is that, your heat in the pan is top and bottom.
Mhm.
And we're working with a little bit taller of a fish, so by us putting it in the oven, we're getting sort of that all-around heat that's gonna work for that gun in the middle. So we're looking for about 135 or so if we were on a thermometer.
And so there's a reason you left my oven on.
Yeah, there is a reason.
After the
It wasn't
appetizer,
for just
that's
the
for
heat,
sure.
I promise.
Now, I'm only eating this appetizer for the 4th time out of pure courtesy. It's not that it's not absolutely delicious, and I can eat 20 of these, no problem. Lane, you want in?
I'm good, but it is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Lane is saving more room for the mommy.
Ready? I think I made enough of a mess. I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the oven now. If you have rubber handles on your pans, I will say that, make sure they're oven safe before you throw it in there.
And if it weren't oven safe, you would transfer it to something
Yeah,
else.
if it weren't oven safe, I would definitely put it on a skillet or a pan of some sort, but also making sure it's well greased.
That ought to be well greased and maybe warmed a little bit.
Yes, warmed up a little bit, wouldn't hurt at all, especially since going in with the pan, it's already plenty hot.
Mhm.
So preheating the pan a minute or two would be a good idea.
All right, what comes next, Chef Chase?
All right, we're gonna go ahead and check on this couscous and get our water boiling. So now we're kind of just taking some of that mushroom flavor going into the water.
Mhm.
This is one of the things about couscous that makes it so versatile. Is this could be onions, it could be anything you want, anything you like. It's another one of those, whatever's in your garden. It's a good base for a farm to table meal, so to speak.
Excellent. And I should just say, not only does it smell delicious, but it keeps looking tastier and tastier. I hope we're just a few minutes away, Chef Chase, because my stomach is growling.
Yes, it's beautiful. The fish fish is going, this is going, it'll be about 10 minutes, I think, until the fish is good. So what do you guys think about talking about what's gonna go good with this fish?
Outstanding. So we're working on couscous, we're working on we've got a beautiful mushroom, some beautiful mushrooms there. Food's in the oven. This is a good time to talk about wine.
Yes, it is.
Lane, what do we got?
Okay, so as we're moving on to the Chianti, which some of you might be familiar with hearing the word Chianti. It's one of the more famous wines out of Italy. Also, probably one of my favorite go-to food wines. And the reason is this is a medium bodied. It's got some fruit flavors. It's got some earthy notes to it. And like I said, when you think about food, you got to think about the region in itself. And when you think of Italy, this is the wine that goes with your pizza, your pastas, and absolutely everything.
And we just learned couscous or pasta, so.
Yes. So, yeah, like I said, Chianti is one of the more classic wines. It's from the Sangiovese grape variety, also one of my favorite varieties in general. But yeah, we'll go ahead and pour a little bit of this.
Now we have two different sizes of wine glass here. Is that significant in any way?
Yes, it is. Actually, I had the pleasure of doing a tasting where we had different sized glasses, same wine in each glass. And then you got to smell them and taste from them. And it actually changed a little bit from glass to glass what the wine kind of smelled like, what notes came out of it. So for red wine, you kind of want this big bowl. And again, that's just all about oxygen getting to the wine. So when you have the bigger bowl, you have more oxygen getting in there. It's also why you would swirl the wine a little bit. We're just creating larger surface area.
So if somebody's swirling wine, it's not just because they're trying to be snooty or look like they know what they're doing, but because they actually do know what they're doing. They're trying to get more oxygen to the wine so it tastes better.
Yes, yeah, or you could do it for just to look cool.
Okay. You know, people would just do something they don't understand to look cool.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, so then with white wine, it's not as important to get the oxygen to the wine, especially like the Favorita that we were just had. It's crisp, it's refreshing. You want it to maintain that quality. If it was an oaky Chardonnay, what you were talking about with the oak exposure, that is something you'd actually probably want a little oxygen to get to.
Okay.
So just something to keep in mind. Like I said, Sangiovese, there's a lot of cherry notes on this. There's actually some oregano, some basil notes, some tobacco notes. So that's where like all those spices that Chase was giving us earlier come into tie into this as well.
Now, note's kind of one of those fancy wine words, and that just means if you've tasted cherries before, you can taste a little cherry when you drink them.
Yes.
And that's the note that you're talking about.
Yes.
It won't be the only taste, but it's one of the tastes.
It's one of them.
Okay.
And so people always ask, how do you get to that? Or how do you decipher? And so wine is a very subjective thing. So what I maybe consider red cherries, you might consider something slightly different. And so it's all up to what you're tasting. We can only give you general guidelines of what works.
Let's summarize. If you taste it, you're right. If I taste different, I'm wrong. That's what
he is also right.
Oh, you're very kind. All right. What else do we need to know?
Actually, I think we know again.
Absolutely.
You always do Chef Chase, and we're happy to let you.
So the fish is about halfway through its oven time like we needed. The water is boiling here on the couscous, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn that just right back up on a full flame and add the couscous itself. And what that's gonna do is basically gonna be similar to cooking oatmeal at home. So it's gonna hydrate itself, it's gonna get a little bit thicker, and you kind of take it to your liking on the al dente part. Some people like it with a tad bit more hearth in the middle, and some people like it, squiggly, like I think we spoke about it. So
you can see different couscous, and some of them are a little smaller than others, and that's how hydrated.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sure. And it just gets smelling good by the minute.
Is that right, Lane? Does it smell as good as he said in?
It does. It smells amazing, actually.
Well,
even through the mess.
I mean, one of those old Mel Brooks movies talked about the smell-o-vision and how someday we have TV, you could also smell through. I wish we had smell-o-vision for people right now.
If we did,
I do too.
I think that they'd be a little spoiled.
As long as you're cooking, Chef.
All right, just gonna pay close attention to this. We're gonna heat it up basically until it takes your water away. So it's something, if you walk away, you might walk back and it'll be over here huffing, stuck to the pan. So I don't like to walk away, but I do couscous, kind of my thing. So we're gonna show this a little extra care.
You gotta make sure we don't miss it.
Yes, sir.
You don't want to have to start over. So Chef Chase, we're talking about couscous, we've got mushrooms, we've got our mahi, and we're gonna see this all come together in just a few moments in a plate.
Yes, we are. We're gonna see this come together, the fish, the mahi, the couscous. It's gonna kind of serve as your starch and your veggie. And then right into that dessert that's full of good fruit.
My starch and my vegetable. Now you're talking my language.
Yes.
If I can call the starch a vegetable, I'm a very happy man.
Kind of an all-in-one, so to say.
Outstanding. So what else do you have to tell us today, Chef?
I actually do want to check on the fish, so I'm gonna go take a look at this, make sure nothing crazy is going on.
So while he's checking the fish, Lane, is there any time when there are two different foods that are on together on a plate and they don't really match up to one line?
That's where you kind of go with your preference.
Okay.
And that's where I would say what you like to drink typically. And like I said, we do these rules of thumb of pairings and stuff, but ultimately it's meant to be an enjoyable experience. So if you want to drink something in particular and it may not be the best pairing dish, go for it. I mean, it's your happiness.
So
You know,
if you got surf and turf, and that doesn't automatically pair with anything.
absolutely.
You just go with your gut and you enjoy the wine you always enjoy.
Yes.
But you presumably you're a sommelier, you've trained in all these wonderful ways on wine, so you probably got this list of 100 wines in your head that you love in different ways and for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And so the only way to get to that point where you even have a list of 10 for an ordinary person is just try a lot of wines out, trial and error.
It is. And it's just trying. And what I've kind of noticed that's really helpful with people is think about flavors that you like. So for myself, I like a lot of red fruits, red berries particularly. So the wines that I typically like have a lot of red fruit notes to them.
Okay.
And then for like white wines, I'm a very big lemon, lime, citrus fan. And so I really like the refreshing, zesty white wines. So I always kind of ask people when they're asking for wine. Sorry, go ahead.
Fine. I was listening in, but we do have a lot going on over here. All right. The couscous is starting to lose some of its liquid, so it's thickening up. We're gonna turn that heat down just a little bit on that. And then the fish came out of the oven. We have wonderful color on both sides. Maybe a bit much oil after the cooking process. So I do want to get rid of just a touch of that.
And so no one can look at that and say, oh, there's too much black on both sides, maybe I overcooked it.
No, sir, that would be the vinegar. So a lot of that sugar starts to come out of the vinegar, especially if you're using a higher leaf grade. So we're gonna go ahead and actually add the vinegar now while the pan's really hot. And that's what's gonna make this so wonderful. We're gonna put that right back over heat, and the vinegar is gonna kind of become sticky. It's gonna cook down. You'll see the action it's making in the pan. I like to take the fish and roll it around just a little bit in there as well. Get all that good stuff. You can see that there. Start foaming up on you and just kind of roll that around. Keep it on just another minute, and then we're gonna kill the pan. We don't want to burn that stuff up. It'll get a little bit thick there, and we don't want it to stick or anything.
You don't want to make your pan unusable for the next step.
No, sir, we don't.
All right.
So
Well, it's your pan, so you do what you like, but I think that sounds like a good.
Couscous liquid is now gone, so you see there, we got something that's kind of holding up well, similar to risotto, I guess you could say, as the finished product. We're gonna kill that, let it sit. The fish also looks like it's completely done, so we're gonna take it off the heat, and we'll go ahead and get that plated.
All right. Well, feels like we're building up to this big.
I know.
I mean, it's so exciting. I don't really have this much entertainment in this kitchen when I come down in the morning to eat my raisin bread. So